Oh, this place looks pretty good. I don't see anyone else here. Yeah, I think this is a good spot for our lesson today. Welcome, everyone. We will get started with the lesson portion of today's live stream in just a few minutes at 2 o'clock, so 15 minutes from now. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, feel free to ask those now before we get started. Once the lesson starts, I'm only going to be focused on questions related to the lesson. So, welcome. Let's see. Let's see who is here. See, it looks like there are 64 people currently in the chat. Nice. A few more still coming in. Today, our lesson, a few people asking what the lesson topic is. It's always in the title, so you can check the video title, and that's the form we're going to be learning today. It is an intermediate level grammar form. The prerequisites, they're written up here. These are the ones you want to be familiar with before starting. The number one being, I'd say, adverbs. You really want to know adverbs before you start today's lesson because, well, they're pretty basic, I would say. Although this is an intermediate lesson, so if you're intermediate, you already know this, of course. But just in case, if you want to know what are some specific things I really want to make sure you know, adverbs do get used a lot with this form that we're going to be learning today. So you want to be familiar with those, of course. Next is this form, Konhada. The reason you want to be familiar with this form is not for today's lesson, actually. The reason is because this form often gets compared with the form we're going to be doing today. So if you don't know this form, don't worry about it. But then don't ask how today's form is different from this one. Because at the end of this lesson, I'll give some advanced notes and we'll talk about how this form is different than the one we're learning today. They're not the same form, although they do work in a similar manner. There are actually 3 forms that work in a similar way as the one we're doing today. There's this one and there's 2 more, so 3 total. I will be mentioning this one, but you don't have to, we're not going to be using this form in today's lesson. I'll say that. So if you don't know this one, you can still follow the lesson. You'll just miss out when I explain how it's different from this one. Okay, so with that said, a few announcements really quick. If you are a Patreon of mine, so that is everyone on my Patreon page, whether you're supporting me with a $1 a month or $10 or $20 a month, all of you get access to the worksheets and outlines for every single live stream I've ever done. So there is an outline going back to the first live stream in August of 2018. You can get that right now. Wow, it's been over 3 years. Oh, and happy 2022, everyone. Happy New Year. That's another announcement I wanted to make. Other than that, let's see. Oh, yes. Let me post this in the chat. We have an active Discord channel, a chat channel. You can hang out with other people who are learning Korean, ask Korean questions, get answers, just make friends, kind of hang out and study together. It's open 24/7. It's completely free. There are lots of members there, so check it out. I put a link in the chat. The Nightbot just posted a link to that in the chat right now, so you can check that out. There are people right now chatting. I don't know if they're talking about this lesson. Go ahead and jump in there and you can talk about this lesson while we're doing it live. Other than that, the only other announcement I have is if you are a member of my YouTube channel, so if you are a supporter of this channel, that's not just subscribing, but that's like if you're a paid supporter. You also get to watch all of these live streams the same day that they go up. So after this live stream finishes, I go on my computer and really quickly edit together a shortened version of this lesson. And if you are a member of this channel, you get to watch that tonight. And everyone else, you'll get to see that later in the week. It's usually Wednesday or Thursday. So that's all the announcements I have. Feel free to ask any questions if you have them before we get started. There's still 10 minutes left. Someone said, Michael said, so confused between the use of, I think you might have had a typo there because you wrote ye and a, which are different sounds. Anytime you see a consonant with 2 lines, whether they're like this, or whether they're before or after something or inside of something, whatever, anytime you see 2 of these lines, it means you have a Y sound in that consonant. So if you have a sound like this, a, well, if there are 2, it's a Y, yay. If they're inside here, yay. There you go. Another example, if you have 오, well, now you have two. 요, you have this one. 우, you have two. 유, anytime you see two, any direction, that means a Y sound. 아, 야, 어, 여. That's there. Now you know the secret. And now I'm out of a job. I've just told you all my secrets right there. Let's see. Next question. Yes, I see someone wrote in the chat. 새해 복 많이 받으세요. That's the Korean greeting for Happy New Year. Literally, get a lot of New Year's blessings, like luck. You know, good luck for the new year, kind of like that. Michael P said, hase or hase. The first one is incorrect. The first one's a typo. So if you're wondering about the difference between two letters that sound the same, that actually have the same sounds, then it's spelling. Like, why do you use a C or a K in English? Or a Q or a K, I should say. It's just spelling. Do you spell quarter with a K? No, it's spelled with a Q. Why? Well, there could be a reason for it. Do you need to know that? No, you just need to memorize it as spelling. So yeah, there are reasons why words are spelled certain ways, but you don't need to learn those. You just need to learn that's how it's spelled for spelling purposes. Let's see. Courtney asks, 수 없어 versus 순 없어. Easy question. Oops. I write it wrong. Speaking of spelling, 순 is just a spoken only form of 수는. That's it. Anytime you see a nian at the bottom of a word, but if it's not a word you search that you can find in the dictionary, it means it's a shortened version of this. There are lots of words like that. And the same goes anytime you find a lir at the bottom of a word, and the word itself is not like a searchable word. It's a shortened version of the object marker. Someone asked, do I have plans to do more intermediate live streams this year? And Happy New Year. Thanks. Happy New Year. Yes. The thing is, because I have done so many live streams now, well over 100. Let me see how many it's been. Let's find out right now. About 116, 115. It's been about over 115 live streams I've done. I've covered all of the beginner topics within various lessons, sometimes multiple times. There aren't that many beginner level topics in Korean because you don't need that much grammar to start having conversations. So because of that, we've already covered in some lesson previously, I've already covered every single beginner topic you could ever imagine and more. So in order to continue doing live streams, I'm going to be redoing some of those topics, but in more detail. So not all of them. I don't need to redo a live stream. If I've already done it, it's fine. But I will be redoing some specific topics in those live streams just because we can add more detail to them. For example, last Sunday, I did a redo of the Tae form. And now I've already taught the Tae form briefly, but now I got to teach it in a full live stream and really give it a lot of detail. So that sort of thing is what you'll see in the future. That means there's plenty of room for intermediate and advanced topics because we are nowhere near close to covering all of the advanced topics there are in Korean. There are plenty. So you'll see, and you have already seen lots of intermediate and advanced topics, and you'll continue to see more. Like today's is intermediate. The other one that I have on the vote is also another intermediate topic, and I have lots of other advanced ones ready to go. Panjisung says the same as for Konen. Yep. Konen, and I teach that in the lesson about Konhada. I believe it's from July 26, 2019. That's not from memory. I have it written down. July 26, 2019, I taught about this form, Konhada or Konenhada, but it's usually not used as Konenhada. But it is. It's the same thing. It's just not really used that way too much. All right, 5 more minutes of Any questions? And then we'll start with the lesson. Brianne says, that confused me so much every time I see 전. Yep. And the same goes for 절, 절을 with the object marker. Same thing. Angel aware. 제가 짝이 되어 도와주겠어요. 돼요. There are alternate versions, and okay, this has to do with general conjugation, but I'll just tell you the short version to save you some time. 되다 can become 돼요 or 돼 when conjugated. That's it. How does it become that? Well, you can actually combine the sounds. So you have this O vowel right here, right? 돼요. Well, what if you combine it together, O, and you get 돼? That's what it is. So 돼요 or 돼, same thing. 돼요 is usually more of it has slightly more of a fancy feel. It's less of a casual feel to it. It's less of a spoken feel, but it's fine. People will use that when they want to sound a little bit fancier, a little bit more formal. Another common one you'll see is 하다. Now, everyone knows that it conjugates to 해, but not everyone knows it also can conjugate to 하여. And you'll see instead of like, for example, instead of 해서 for like grammar forms or 해요, you might see 하여서. It's the same thing. This is not common in modern Korean, but you could see it in writing sometimes. It has more of a fancy form. But yeah, it's the same meaning as hey. In fact, in older grammar books, this is not related to the lesson, but in older grammar books, when you see conjugation rules, you'll often see like verb stem, I'll just put VS, verb stem plus a, o, and yo. Have you ever noticed this in grammar books before? I don't do this, but I think, anyway, you'll see this. It's pretty common in grammar books. Well, they'll write this plus this plus this, and then they'll show the grammar form. For example, we're doing 되다 today. So you'll see like a, o. I usually just write etc. because there are various other ones you can see, but you'll see it like a, o, or yo. That's from 하다, specifically from 하다. But it's not really applicable. You don't really need to include this as one of these three options because it's not used. It's not a common form you're going to be attaching. But it's still often in older grammar books, you'll see it just because it's the default, like it's what it used to be really common. It was much more common to use 하여 in the past than today. So you still see that, but it's not really relevant anymore. Just in case you notice that, if you're thinking, what is the yo? What attaches to yo? Well, that's 하다. Good question. Kuran asks, why does Nega 생각 mean you think? It doesn't mean you think. That means Nega is I. I think you spelled it incorrectly. If you're talking about this ne, that is you. Ne is me. So that would be more of a spelling error. But 내가 생각 doesn't mean anything by itself. It's a fragment. So you could say like 내가 생각하는 것은 what I think is. But if you just say 내가 생각 doesn't mean I think. Doesn't mean anything. It's just a fragment. Some IRL asks, is peo? It's a misspell. It's a misspelling of a fancy form of. You could say it's a fancy form of 보다. It's more specifically humble. So I would recommend. I have a live stream about humble speech, so I'd recommend checking that out. It should be peo, but you'll see typo. You'll see it misspelled all the time as peo, more often than not misspelled. But it should be peo. Same sound. Pe. But yeah, that's it. It's humble. It's not fancy, it's humble. But it kind of has a fancy feel if you're using it in that situation. It is used in more formal situations, but it's not, in itself is not. It's just a humble verb. Okay. Benji says, last question. Benji asks, can you explain what 늘 means? 늘 means always, as Anvi wrote below. 늘 means always, but it's more of a poetic sounding word for always. So in poems, in songs, that's probably where you saw it. You have to be careful when you learn Korean, though, from songs, especially K-pop, because everything is constructed to make the melody, to make the sound more pleasing to your ears. Whether that means using uncommon words or onomatopoeia that isn't used in different situations, pronouncing things wrong, very common, believe it or not, in songs, changing the melody or cutting off grammar forms or cutting off particles, super common because the purpose is just to make a good song. So you'll see 늘. 늘 is short. It's one syllable. It means always, but it has more of a poetic feel, like forever, like always. I don't know. It just has an older, fancier feeling. It's still used, but it has a poetic feeling. Versus the common one you actually want to use is 항상. Notice it has two syllables. 항상 doesn't sound as pretty as 늘. 항상. So this is the poetic one. This is the everyday use. Use this one. But in a song, you'll hear this one often because it has a poetic feel to it. I could just make video upon video talking about strange Korean you'll find in K-pop songs because it's everywhere. And then it causes a lot of confusion. So like they'll study Korean from a song and they'll be like, hey, Billy, can you tell me why this word is used in this situation? Why does it translate like this? And I have to explain, like, look, that song is wrong. The Korean they're using, I know they're Korean. The Korean they're using in that song or in that lyric is wrong. Grammatically, spelling, pronunciation. Oh gosh, so much pronunciation in K-pop is just flat out wrong. I'm not talking about like intonation or something. I'm talking about just saying the word wrong so that it rhymes or it sounds cool. It's so common. Okay, anyway, let's get started with the lesson for today. Hey, Secretive. Welcome. That's my moderator. Okay. Well, yeah, someone said, I'd love to see a video about that. Yeah, I have a lot of videos already I have to make first. So I don't know, maybe someday if I get an assistant, I'll see. Maybe I can do some more types of videos like that. Okay, so the form we're going to be learning about today is simple to make. You take an action verb stem and you conjugate it like normal. So 하다 becomes 해. 먹다 becomes 먹어. Like that. And then you attach 되다. That's it. Pretty easy, right? So now that we've talked about that, you might see this used with a space before 되다 or without a space. Both of them are fine because 되다 is actually used as what's known as an auxiliary verb, as they say in fancy English teacher speech, or a helper. It's not really used as a separate verb. It's used simply to help the meaning of the action verb. So you can space it or not space it, and it's the same. And that goes for any auxiliary verb. So, like 해 보다. Same thing. 해 주다. 해 주다. Anything like that, any auxiliary verb, if it's not really like literally being used as a separate verb, you can space it or not space it. To space or not to space. You can do either one. It's not really important. Okay, so what does this form mean? 되다. We're doing pretty good on time. I'm just going to write it up here. Oops. Did I spell that wrong? Yeah, I did. Okay. What is can't even spell English. Okay, I'm a Korean teacher, not an English teacher. Okay, 되다. This form 되다 is used to imply, to mean, that something is continuously happening. This action verb is continuously happening. It keeps happening. And perhaps because it keeps happening, it's continuously going on, that maybe it's too much or it's extreme. Like it's too often. It's too much. It's too extreme. That sort of meaning. So by doing that, this implies, can everyone hear me okay? This implies that this action of something that keeps happening is something negative. So you're not going to say someone keeps doing something that's great. They keep helping me, unless that is implying that helping is negative in some way. So this is used to imply that something keeps going on. It's continuously happening, whatever the action verb is, it keeps going on. And perhaps it's too much. It's too extreme. So it's negative. It's used for talking about someone doing some action that's negative. So the speaker is saying, that's bad. They keep doing something. Something keeps happening. And not only do they keep doing it, but it's like, now it's too much. It's too extreme. That's what this form means. Okay, so let me give you a comparison. Maybe you've already got it. Maybe you feel like, I understand this form now. Maybe. But let me give you some comparisons to what this form is. Okay, I'm going to erase this. And once you start seeing it in verbs, once you start seeing it with verbs and in sentences, this will even make more sense. So you can compare this to saying, one of these two. 심하게 하다. 하다 would be whatever verb you're talking about. 심하게, so seriously, extremely. 심하게 하다, to do something that's too extreme. Or 너무 많이 하다. 너무 많이 하다. So if you're already familiar with these, you can just replace this with 되다 in your mind and you'll get correct sentences going back or forth. So these should kind of help you understand what this form means when you're trying to comprehend a new sentence. If it just doesn't quite make sense, try switching a 되다 verb to one of these two, and it should help. So, how can we translate? Oh, actually, let me do one more thing. Okay, so in saying this, so then what does this mean? This form, therefore, is used for expressing the speaker, your own feelings on an action. So it's kind of like saying, hey, like I feel something negative. Well, someone is doing something too extreme, too much, like that. That's what this form is used for, and that's what it means. Okay, so now let's talk about how we can translate this in English. Am I going too fast? Let me stop for a minute. I'm going to check the chat before I just erase this. I don't want to go too fast. I'm not trying to be Sonic here. Speaking of which, Sonic 2 trailer looks pretty cool. I'll definitely see that. Hey there, I see a few of my members. Jordy, Tokin, Carrie. Hey, Carrie. Let's see who else, if I missed anyone else who came in earlier. Hanmi, Turner. Hello to both of you as well. I'm like looking off the screen. I'm saying hi to you on my screen over here. Panji Song asks, does 되다 always have a negative connotation? Yes. Anvi says, can this be used in all tenses? Yeah. It can be used just like a regular verb. Now, as long as that makes sense, I could think of you if you use a certain verb with this form, then it might not make sense in this certain usage, but that's because logically it wouldn't make sense. Like it would be things you wouldn't try to say anyway. So I'll just say yes, you can use it like a regular verb. Lauren Holton says, me continuously binging dramas. 받에다. I've never heard 받에다. Let me check. I've never even thought of that. Let's check it like this. 받에고. I would want to ask a native on that because like I can put that together. Let me check the shorter way. Okay, let's try this. You could probably do 감상이 되다. I don't know if you do 보다 with 보다. I would want to ask a native before I would tell you yes, because you can make that. And I'm like, yeah, I guess you could put it together like that. But have I ever heard that used before? No. I would want to ask a native. Are there any natives in here that can give me a quick opinion? Sometimes I have natives watching the stream that use my live streams for practicing English. Because like grammatically being able to make it is different than people actually using it. And it's possible they might not use 보다 in that situation. They might use something like, viewing or watching. There are a few other verbs for that. Mohammed said, can you use 대단히 playful or teasing manner? Yes. AVVA says, is this like complaining? Well, you could use it like complaining. Yeah. But it doesn't necessarily have to be you're complaining about something, but it has a I feel negative about it sort of feeling. Let's see. Maybe there's not a native in the chat right now. Usually there is, at least toward the middle of the lesson. Usually a native or two will come in. I can ask when someone comes in. You can do eating. Yeah, eating's common. Usually 먹어 대다 is pretty common. I was trying to think of 받에다. Yeah, I don't know. Like I would say it makes sense to me, but I've never heard it. So because I haven't heard it used, I'd be careful about just saying yes. Okay, so let's learn how to translate this. So here are two ways you can translate this form in your head. He or she or someone has been doing some verb, has been doing too much, or he or she keeps doing too much. So like, oh yeah, he's been doing that way too much, or he keeps doing that too much. This is how you can translate it. So again, it shows that something is continuously happening. And perhaps that action that keeps happening is too much or too extreme. So it's kind of talking about it negatively. So when you say, oh yeah, they keep doing that, you have the feeling of you're saying it's negative. You're saying it's not good. Yeah, they keep doing that. Or they have been doing that and it's too much. They've been doing that too much. That sort of meaning. Okay. Rosianna Sphere asks a really nice question. Is this similar to the like 하다 못해? It can be, but the usage is completely different. The usage is very different in that. That expresses two different things. And I have a lesson about that. Like 하다 못해 with action verbs, no. With action verbs, it has a completely different meaning. With descriptive verbs, it has a similar meaning, kind of like too much. But with action verbs, it's not. So this one is only used with action verbs. So the usage is completely different, but I see why you're asking that question. I would check out do a review of my lesson about the 하다 못해 form, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But yeah, it has a similar idea, but not the same usage. Nathan Hipple by Papago translated 먹어대다 as to wolf down. You can translate it that way. In fact, I think that's the same way that I learned it originally before I knew this form, before I knew this was a grammar form. So you can translate that, but the meaning is not that. That's just a nice way to talk about eating something. Someone keeps eating something like in a negative way, like too much or too extreme, like that. Okay. Someone asked 해 되다. Yeah, you'll see lots of ones with 해 되다 for 하다, from the verb 하다, to do. Okay. So when can you use this form? Well, it is not a polite sounding form. So keep that in mind. This form is not polite. You will not use this form in any situation where you need to sound the slightest bit polite. So, does that mean you'll never use this with the you form? No, because the you form isn't only when you're trying to sound polite. You can use this with the you form. There are many situations where you use the you form, but you're not trying to sound extra polite. This form itself has kind of a casual, like a slangy feeling to it. So you wouldn't use this anytime you're in a formal situation or anytime you're trying to be polite to someone. It is used in a casual, informal style of speaking. It does not have a polite feeling to it. I'll say that. See, how are we on time? Perfect. Okay. That is everything you need to know about how to use this form. I still want to know if a native speaker is here. If there's anyone who's native Korean, let me know. I have a question to ask you. Okay. Soft and feral. I just read your name. It's kind of funny. Okay. So let's do an example sentence then. Our first example sentence. Let's use our friend Charsu. He hasn't come out in a while. I'm going to write up a sentence. I want you to try to translate it. I want you to try to translate this one. It's our first sentence. I've got 4, 5, 6, 7. Wait, let's check. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sentences. All different. I've curated 8 nice sentences to show you with this form. Lauren Holton, can you use this form to talk about your own bad habits? No, because you're complaining about it. It would just sound weird. You're like complaining about something. You're saying it's too often, it's too extreme. Like, it sounds weird that you would be doing that when you're the one that has control over it. So I'm going to say no. No. If you want to talk about your own actions and you want to talk about them in a negative way, or you want to express some emotion like that, use the 버리다 form. Because I was trying to think, I'm like, well, what would I use if I wanted to talk about negative? I would use the 버리다 form. 버리다. So I have a live stream about that. Like, oh, I just like used up all my money. Like it's negative. I hate how I do that. Like that. You can use 허버렸어. And you just use 버리다 for that. Hey, Julia. Angeles. Hi, watching from Australia. This is my first live stream. Thank you, Julia, and welcome. Julia is our first supporter today. 15 Australian dollars. Thanks. Watching from Australia. And believe it or not, I used to be able to do a passable Australian accent back in like 2010. When I worked at doing telephone translation, I got a lot of customers that were from Australia and New Zealand. So you hear it like all day. And I started to be able to do like a half acceptable Australian accent. but it's yeah, obviously not now. Okay, I'm gonna read your translations. Let's see how you're translating this. 철수는 요즘 잠도 안 자고 게임만 해대요. 해대요 is the important part here. Neighbor says that 사타 can be used as... you'd have to give me an example of what you're talking about, Tani. Only playing games without even sleeping. Ayakata, please only try once. Don't fill the chat with multiple attempts because I can't read other people's. Charsu only plays games and doesn't even sleep. Very nice. Carrie, these days Charsu, like he wrote his name in caps, does not even sleep and he only plays games. Yes. Even keeps playing games. Watching from Norway. Oh, welcome. Sleep and keeps playing. We'll keep playing games. Okay. Games. Charsu sleeps and games too much. That's a good. That's a good. That's good. Games too much. Sounds nice. Lauren says, I love Australian accents. I think they sound so cool too. Yeah, I like them too. I only wish I could do an Australian accent. Okay. 철수는, so 철수, 요즘, these days, nowadays, recently. 요즘 잠도 안 자고, so 잠을 자다 is to sleep. 잠도 안 자다, so doesn't even sleep. 도, even. game, only, 만, 해대요, from 하다, so 하다, 해대요. 안 자고 게임만 해대요. So, 철수, oops, I got another donation. Joey the Gamer, welcome Joey. Oops, actually, I'll put M here for member. Okay, let's see. Thank you and welcome to the channel. Appreciate it. So, Charsu these days doesn't even sleep and he's only playing games. He keeps only playing games. So he keeps doing it and it's too much. So all he's doing is just playing games. He plays games too much. It's implying that it's extreme. So this is implying that Charsu's playing games like too much. Like that's all he's doing. Maybe he's not even eating properly. Well, he's not sleeping, so he's probably not taking care of himself. I'm sure he's not showering either. 철수. 철수는 요즘 잠도 안 자고 게임만 해대요. So 철수 either keeps doing it or he has been doing it because it's something that he's continually doing. Not just once, not like right now, he's only playing games right now. Like, no, it's implying that this is going on. He's continually doing it. Therefore, it's some sort of habit. Hence the lesson title. It has to do with like something he's doing habitually, continually, and it's too much and it's negative. So all he's been doing lately is just, not even sleeping and just playing games like that. 철수는 요즘 잠도 안 자고 게임만 해대요. So lately, 철수 doesn't even sleep and only keeps playing games. Okay, let's do the next one. That was a simple example just to show you how it works, but we can do some more. So let me write this a little nicer. I can read my own writing, but not everyone else can. Oops, I was like, as soon as I wrote this, I'm like, wait, that doesn't make any sense. It helps if I spell it correctly. I see the board flashing. I'll check that in a second after I write this. Okay, try to translate this sentence. Meanwhile, I'm going to check to see why the board flashed. SEK, what is SEK? Hold on. Charlene. SEK, $2. Thank you, Charlene. for appreciation of this channel. I'll write you up here. Appreciate it. Everyone, try to translate this sentence. 밖에서 고양이가 밤마다 울어대서 잠을 자기 힘들어요. Again, we have another example that has 잠을 자다, so to sleep. So let's see if you can translate this one. 철수는 마인크래프트 한다고 합니다. Yeah, he's probably just playing Minecraft all day, trying to build a computer with redstone or something. Te part of the sentence makes me feel like it's more I heard. Nope, that is different. That is a different te form. There is a different te form. That is teo or te. That is 다고해. I have a live stream about that. 100% unrelated to this form. Zero relation. Other than it's spelled the same way. So yeah, this is not that form. Not 한대요, but 해대요. There's a cat that keeps crying outside, so it's hard to sleep. Yep. There's a cat crying outside every night. Okay, I'm going to read these really quick. Everyone has it translated as crying, and literally, yeah, it is crying. I think meowing would be a better way to translate this, because this is the regular verb you would use to say the cat's meowing. Like in English, we would say crying is like, you know, they sound like the cat sounds really sad, but meowing is just making a loud sound, right? Just we would just call that meowing. So this would be meowing, but crying could work. Crying is a little different sound. So if you're a cat owner, I used to have cats. Crying sound is different than just a regular meowing sound. But anyway, cat keeps crying or the cat keeps meowing. SEK is Swedish currency. Nice. Today I know that. Today I've learned that now. 5 cats and a sad face. Yeah, if you live in Busan, or you live in you know, some cities just have tons of wild cats. Yes. Jingjing is complaining. Jingjing is complaining. Like the Squidward in SpongeBob, I believe his Korean name is Jingjingi. If I have that correct, let me check. 징징이는 바다에서 제일 좋은 친구. Yeah, 징징이. Yeah, 징징 is an like a, what do you call it, a sound word for complaining, as in whining, or like, you know, babies do it, kids do it, sometimes adults do it. Okay. 밖에서 고양이가 밤마다 울어대서 잠을 자기 힘들어요. So, 밖에서, outside, 고양이, cat, 밤마다. 마다 is a suffix, so something you attach onto the end of a noun. That means each and every. So every, 밤, night. 울다, to cry. In this case, it's a cat, so to meow or to cry. 울어대다, keeps crying. Too much. It's annoying. It's negative. 울어대서, 서, because the cat keeps crying every single night outside. 잠을 자다, to sleep. 힘들어요. It's hard to sleep because the cat keeps crying outside every single night. So there's a cat that's outside that keeps meowing every single night, so it's difficult to sleep. 밖에서 고양이가 밤마다 울어대서 잠을 자기 힘들어요. Okay. Let's see. Do these get harder? A little bit. Okay, let's do a dog this time. We had a cat. Let's do a dog. 새벽. Who knows what 새벽 means? If you saw Squid Game, maybe you looked it up. It's a regular Korean word. There's a character named 강새벽. That's just the word 새벽. lots of sentences about animals making it harder to sleep. I swear, this is the last one. There are only two. Let's write this a little bit nicer. I wrote it worse. It's probably when I'm writing something at an angle. Okay. 새벽에 옆집 강아지가 지저대서 일찍 깼어요. 새벽. 새벽 means after midnight. So you can translate it as that or in early in the morning. So early in the morning or late at night, that sort of meaning. 옆집 강아지, the dog that belongs to the 옆집, 옆, next house. So the neighbor's dog. 옆집 강아지, the neighbor's dog. 짖다 is to bark. 지저대서. So the dog next door keeps barking really late at night. 일찍, early, 깼어요. So I woke up early because the dog next door keeps barking late at night. 새벽에 옆집 강아지가 지저대서 일찍 깼어요. So the neighbor's dog keeps barking past midnight, so I woke up early. Or keeps barking early in the morning, like that. Now, this would be before morning. If it's morning, you would just say 아침. So 새벽, I think you would call it until like maybe 5 a.m. or maybe like 6-ish, but no later than that. Any later, you would call it the morning. And if it's earlier than midnight, you would just call it late at night, or you'd call it at midnight or something like that, or 밤. But yeah, so that's 새벽. Middle of the night. We might sometimes say middle of the night in English, even though we don't mean middle of the night. We actually mean like 2 a.m. So there's no real good way to translate this into English every time. Just know that's what it means, is that time period, after midnight and before the morning. Dawn would be specifically when the sun's coming up, though. 새벽 would be before dawn, because if it's dawn, if the sun's up, you would say morning usually. But like I said, there's no exact, they don't have like a committee where they meet every year and discuss what time they'll say for 새벽 or what time they'll say for morning or afternoon. But yeah. Okay. 밤 starts at 10, right? No, it's just night. When do you say the word night in English? Because you can also call it 저녁. 저녁 is also evening. 밤 is night, but you could say it's night if it's not 10 o'clock. It's nighttime. Like it's just kind of a concept like we have in English. Like when do we say lunchtime? 점심시간. When is lunchtime? Do you eat at 11? Do you eat at 1 or 2? That whenever that is, that's the time. You know, afternoon. 오후. 오후 just means afternoon. So when is afternoon? When is it no longer night? Well, technically afternoon is after 12, so it could be 12. So 11 p.m. could be 오후, right? But people wouldn't call it 오후, they'd call it 밤. So that's just kind of what it is. 저녁 is evening, but people might associate it with dinner time. So maybe that's like 5, 6-ish or whatever. But it could be like 7, could be like 8. You know, it could depend on the person. There's not really a strict rule for it. 아침에 닭들은 질러대서 제가 일찍 일어나요. The chickens are screaming. Ah! Is that what chickens do in the morning? Do they scream? Ah! Do they 지르다? I don't know about that. Okay. 새벽에 옆집 강아지가 지저대서 일찍 깼어요. So I woke up early because the dog next door keeps barking early in the morning. Okay. Let's see how we are on time. 33. Okay, we're right on time. Everything has to do with like sleep in these first examples. But notice that they're all like complaining. Like I said, it doesn't have to be like you're complaining about something, but you're definitely talking about it negatively. Even if it's not personally affecting you. 아이가 자면서 저를 발로 차대서 멍이 들었어요. 멍 is a bruise. 멍이 들다 is to get bruised. 멍이 들었어요. So I got bruised because 아이가, my kid, literally the child, 자면서, while sleeping, the kid, what did the kid do? 저를, me, 발로 차다, kicked me with its foot. 차대서. So the kid kept kicking me with its foot while I was asleep. So because of that, 멍이 들었어요. I got bruised because the kid kept kicking me with their feet while they were sleeping. 아이가 자면서 저를 발로 차대서 멍이 들었어요. So I got a bruise because my child kept kicking me while they were asleep. Literally, 자면서, while sleeping. Okay, I did that one a little faster just because I want to make sure we're okay on time. The next one, again, I want you... can I have you do this one? Yeah, I want you to try translating this one. This one's a little bit more difficult. I don't have enough space. Let's rewrite this so I have more space. There we go. Okay, try to translate this one on your own for a minute first. 캐러멜을 그렇게 먹어대면 이빨이 다 망가질 거예요. 캐러멜을 그렇게 먹어대면 이빨이 다 망가질 거예요. I could totally say this to my kid. 캐러멜을 그렇게 먹어대면 이빨이 다 망가질 거예요. 임승준 씨. Are you native? Yeah, I wanted to ask if 뭐뭐뭐 해대다, 뭐뭐뭐 먹어대다가 되는데 그러면 봐대다도 되는지 여기 누가 드라마를 봐대다가 말이 되냐고 물어봤길래 갑자기 궁금해졌는데 물어볼 수 있는 원어민이 없어가지고 어떻게 생각하세요? 그렇게 써도 되는지 봐대다. 그러니까 막 자꾸 막 봐대고 있는데 드라마를 그렇게 봐대면 뭐 이렇게 쓸 수 있는지 아니면 어색한지 저는 들어본 적이 없어가지고 잘 모르겠는데 일단 물어보고 싶었어요. 그렇게 말해도 되는지 어색한지. We'll see. If you eat so much caramel like that, your teeth are going to fall out. Okay? Going to fall out works very nicely. Literally, it doesn't mean that, but it's fine to translate it like that because that's how you would say it anyway. 이빨 is teeth. Now, the normal, you could also, the word E is also teeth, but 이빨 is like more of a spoken version of E. Yeah, you can use 다가는, sure, but it has a different feeling. But I'm not sure if the native's still here or if they just popped in for a second. I was like, I asked them, but it's possible they were just here for a second and left. So I'll see if they reply. Eating caramel, like your teeth will go bad. Yeah, and if you're using as 먹어대면, you could also say 먹다가는, but it has a different feeling to it. And I also have a live stream about 다가는, which talks about that different feeling. You can swap it. It works, but the feeling's different. So yeah, and there's a lot of situations like that in English or Korean where you can switch something for another thing and the sentence works, but it has a slightly different meaning and a different feeling. your teeth will go bad if you eat caramel like that. Yeah. So if you keep eating caramel like that, your teeth are going to go bad. 캐러멜을 그렇게 먹어대면. So, caramel or caramel, however you say it. I actually don't know what the correct way to say it is. Caramel, 그렇게, like that. So the way that you are, 먹어대다, to eat, to keep eating. So you're eating it and it's too much. You're just scarfing down. As someone said, wolf down works too. Because you're doing it excessively. It's too extreme. It's too much. And you keep doing it. So if you keep just eating caramel like that, 이빨이, your teeth, 다, all of them, 망가지다, to get ruined. So to fall out, to be messed up. 이빨이 다 망가질 거예요. Your teeth are all going to get messed up. Your teeth are all going to fall out if you keep eating caramel like that. If you keep scarfing down caramel, your teeth are all going to get ruined. Like that. 캐러멜을 그렇게 먹어대면 이빨이 다 망가질 거예요. Kind of makes me hungry. I want to have a caramel now. I have the BTS released caramels, like a limited edition BTS butter branded caramel set. And I have that, and the caramels are pretty good. I still have some left. They just taste really good. So now I want to eat one of those. But that's I have to go downstairs to get that. I don't feel like it. Okay, let's see. Did we get an answer? I guess the native left because they never replied. Okay. Yes. Okay. I'm still curious. If another native comes in, I'll ask again. Very good. I haven't said this yet, but all of your translations that I've been reading in the chat have been very good. So I think you've got it. I think you've got this form. I have 2 more examples for you, and then we're going to talk about a couple advanced notes. Here's an example with the 버리다 form that I mentioned, which you could use it for yourself as well for the 버리다 form. Let's check it. Oh, they did reply. Yay! I thought so. Okay, sorry for late reply. We don't usually use 받다. Yeah, I thought so, but grammatically, I thought it makes sense, but I've never heard it before. So I wanted to ask a native. Thank you. So we have native confirmation. Yes, it is not used in Korea. 그럼 뭐라고 해요? 드라마를 그냥 물론 뭐 보다가는이라고는 할 수 있겠지만 감성해 대다는 그것도 좀 어색하고 글쎄 뭐라고 하지? 그러니까 뭔가를 그냥 너무 많이 보고 있다고 할 것 같은데 너무 많이 보다. I think that's all you would say is just 너무 많이 보다. To just watch too much. 너무 자주 보다. 너무 많이 보다. Would be more common. But anyway, now we have confirmation from the native that yes, they do not use that form. So I got lucky though in my guess. Okay. 돈을 그렇게 써대면 금방 다 써버릴 거예요. So, 돈, money. 그렇게, like that. 쓰다, to use. In this case, 써대다. To just keep using. You're just excessively using your money like that. 금방, right away, soon. 금방, I think you can think of it as like, before you know it, right away, instantly. 다 써버리다. Again, to use all of it, to completely use it. This 버리다 form, I have a live stream about. It's also used for expressing kind of your emotions, a negative emotion about something. So it's like you're just gonna, you're gonna end up throwing away all your money. Literally, use and throw it away is what it literally means. But it's more just to say like you're completely using all your money. 다 써버릴 거예요. So you're just gonna, end up spending all your money right away if you keep, throwing it out like that. If you keep just wasting your money like that, as in excessively using it, wasting, we would say. 써대다, you can think of it like wasting in a sense. Like 낭비하다 is another way to say it. See if we got another reply. But we can sometimes use, for example, 뭘 그렇게 받아? TV 좀 그만 봐대? Ah. So, the conclusion is then, you can use it, but it could be awkward if it's not used in the correct situations. Let's go with that. So, if you want to know, can I say padeda? Like, use it with this form? The answer is probably not. Not the way you might be thinking. But we do have a couple examples here where it does sound okay. Like, what do you keep looking at? 뭘 그렇게 봐대? TV 좀 그만 봐대? Or what are you looking at like that? What do you keep looking at excessively? So some situations it could be. All right. 드라마나 봐대고 있다. 이러면 드라마 보는 걸 평소에 안 좋아하는 사람이 비꼬는 느낌이 드네요. Okay. So you could kind of use, well, to be fair though, this whole form is kind of like that anyway. So yeah. TV 좀 그만 봐대. Did you have a typo? I didn't even notice you had a typo. Oh, I see. You just changed your spacing. It's the same thing. Unless you changed it on a typo. Okay, let's see. Soft and feral, can you say overspend? Overspend would be different. Overspend is when you're using more money than you had to get something. This one doesn't have that sort of meaning. This one is simply you are using it too much. As in you're spending your money too much. Not that you're necessarily each thing you're using, you're overpaying for it though. So this would be more like wasting your money, as we would say. Like you're making fun of somebody. You're like, you're wasting your money like that. As in using it all. But it doesn't imply wasting as in buying things that you didn't need. It's just like wasting as in overspending. So that there I think would be fine. But overspending, like I said, can have a different meaning. So as long as you know what the literal meaning is, feel free to translate it however you'd like in that situation. So sometimes overspend might sound good. Sometimes wasting might sound good. But other times wasting might not fit what you're trying to say. So it doesn't match up exactly with English. 돈을 그렇게 써대면 금방 다 써버릴 거예요. So if you keep just, using your money like that, wasting your money, you're going to, before you know it, really soon, you'll soon spend all of it. I always like native input because regular natives might not be able to explain why they say something or, grammar rules or anything like that, but they still have they'll have a perfect understanding of what things sound right to them. Now, it might not be right to everyone, but to them. So you get good insight into natives, what they say, because even though every native will also speak a little bit differently, it's good to get that kind of insight. So I like it. I like hearing what natives think about different grammar forms and stuff like that, because that's how you really understand Korean, is not just knowing, grammar rules, which a book can teach you, but knowing how forms feel, right? Which ones do you use in which situations, that sort of thing. Because grammatically, you can make lots of grammar forms grammatically make sense in different sentences, but then you ask a Korean, you ask any native, and they'd say that sounds awkward. That happens all the time. All of these examples I give you, though, every single live stream example I've ever given you, though, has been vetted by native speakers. So you don't have to worry about my sentences. They are all from natives. So I'll write them and I get them checked. Or sometimes I'll just have natives write them. So I always want to make sure they are 100% natural sentences, with the exception of when I just tell you how it's conjugated. I'll just make up something for that. But yeah, all of my sentences you can trust them. They're all native approved. I'll say that. Kid tested, native approved. Okay, last sentence for this form, and then we're going to go on to some comparisons. Another one with sleeping. I forgot this one was in here. Okay, this one's a little bit different because this one has another grammar form that you might not know. I'd hope you've seen this before, but you might not be familiar with it depending on your level. This one is actually intermediate. make sure this all fits. Okay. 일찍 자야 한다면서 계속 커피를 마셔대면 어떡해요? 일찍 자야 한다면서 계속 커피를 마셔대면 어떡해요? 어떡해요? Okay, try to translate this on your own. I'm not sure how many of you will be able to get this, but try it. See if anyone can get this, though. I'm curious. Joey the Gamer says, can you do like too much loving or like you are being overloved or overattended to by your parent or spouse? Too much love. 사랑해 되다? I don't think so. You can say 사랑을 표현해 되다 to like express too much love. But like, I'm not sure when you would use that. I can't think of a situation when you would say that. I mean, if you could think of a situation, feel free to try it. Expressing love too much. Lauren says, my native friend always tells me what words are used more commonly than the textbook ones. Yeah, stuff like that's really useful. Like my, the original Korean book, the original grammar book that I used when I was learning Korean. So this is a very old book. This is actually a copy, totally not authorized, of the original book. Although I did own this one. I gave someone that and they gave me this in exchange. This one has, a native went through and wrote notes on every single form. For example, this form, old people style. They put it in like a quote so that you can know not to use it. This one, they crossed out a sentence and wrote, I've never used this form my whole life. And they put stars next to each form, marking how useful they are. So for example, this one, 보다, 5 stars, super common. Or this one, 건만, 건만. Yeah, 건대, very uncommon. They wrote, let's see, for 건대, they put 3 stars. And then for 건만, they wrote 1 star. So you get to see, like, is this actually commonly used? And it's super useful because I could have just gone through this book and learned it and then, have no idea which stuff I should actually focus on. A native speaker is really your best resource for practicing Korean, getting good listening practice and speaking practice. There's just so much that they can contribute. And so get a pen pal, get a Korean friend that you can talk with, that you can ask questions to. Jordy Kroons, you do sell this rare item. No, it's out of date. And like I said, these days there are so many more high quality books for learning Korean than there were when I started. Like that was the only book that I could find that had Korean grammar. Like literally the only book that that just straight up taught Korean grammar in detail. Nowadays, you could walk into any bookstore and I could pull out any random book in the Korean learning section and it's going to be better than that book. Although maybe not as detailed. But if you find like the detailed books, these days there are a lot of them, books that go into detail. If you pull out any of those, it's going to be similar. So I wouldn't want to recommend an older book. Plus the grammar, even the grammar in Korean that I learned just 16 years ago is different now. A lot of it has changed within my lifetime, within my Korean learning lifetime. So much has changed about the Korean language. Things that were completely wrong when I started are now considered officially correct, even. Sounds changed. When I learned Korean first, believe it or not, this sound and this sound were still considered officially different. Or I shouldn't say that. I should say many people still differentiated them. Many people still pronounced them differently. So I learned them differently. I learned how to make them differently when I was first learning Korean. And then just a couple of years later after that, no longer mattered. They don't need to be different anymore. You pronounce them both the same, like that. So lots of stuff changes over the years, or like grammar forms that used to be more common and now are less common. Lots of stuff like that. Not even talking about slang. There are plenty of slang words. There are so many fun slang words I used to know when I was first learning Korean that nowadays, if I use them, it'd be like, Willie, where'd you hear that? They'd be like, why do you know that random thing? They used to be common when I was first learning, lots of fun slang words and stuff. Anyway. 일찍 자야 한다면서 계속 커피를 마셔대면 어떡해요? So, 일찍, early, 자다, to sleep. 자야 하다. So you have to sleep early. 한다면서. I have a lesson about this. It's one of the quoting forms, so you can learn this if you check out my live stream. So literally, while you are saying that you have to go to bed early, So hey, you're saying that you have to sleep early, but 계속 continually keep 커피를 마시다. Drink coffee. You keep drinking coffee. 마셔되면 if you're gonna just keep drinking coffee, 어떡해요? What are you going to do? Literally. So you're saying you have to go to bed early while you just keep drinking coffee. So if you're saying that you have to go to bed early, then how come you just keep drinking coffee? You can translate it like that. Literally though, while you're saying that you have to go to bed early, if you keep drinking coffee like that, what are you going to do? But we might say something like, you're saying you have to go to bed early, but how come you just keep drinking coffee? This 어떡해요 can be difficult to translate into English, but I think it works for that. Like in this case, how come? It's like a why sort of feeling. 일찍 자야 한다면서 계속 커피를 마셔대면 어떡해요? Okay, let's check the chat for a second. Caleb Russo said Korean grammar in use. I think Korean grammar in use is a pretty good one to start. Yeah, I've used that before. I've seen that one before. It's okay. There are a lot of books that are okay. Jeff W. said, sell that annotated version. Never. I will never sell the annotated version. It's the only copy. I'm just reading a lot of your translations here. Very good. Very good. Paul Chung said, Koreans don't give up drinking iced Americano even in the cold weather. Yeah. I mean, I've said, like, I heard people call it that as like a joke. I would never call. I just feel so awkward using those types of slang words. They just sound so like a teenager would say them. I can't use them. How are you going to sleep early if you keep drinking coffee? Yeah, that works. Because the 어떡해요 kind of is literally, what are you going to do? But it has a feeling of like, oh no, like what's going on? That sort of feeling. So how are you going to sleep early works, I think, as a translation. Brienne, maybe it's decaf. Could be. But decaf still has caffeine in it. It's just much less, but it still has caffeine. Carol says, so how were A and A pronounced? The same, but A with wider lips. In fact, the first time I went to, no, not the first time. I've had Koreans ask me if I know the difference between them, because most Koreans these days don't know there used to be a difference between them. They don't know what that difference was, but you had A, which is what everyone knows, A, and you have A with wider lips. That's it. It's just wider lips. A versus A. And nowadays they're both A. And if you don't hear any sound, if you can't tell the difference, well, that's part of the reason why it's now the same thing. Because no one could tell the difference. And even when there was a difference, it wasn't a big difference. And the same thing applied to ye and ye. Can you hear a difference? There's not much. And I don't even care about it anymore. So I don't do this much anymore. Even though I learned there was a difference and I can do it, it's the same thing. And it sounds pretty much the same. Like very, very small difference, if anything. I can barely hear it, even if I emphasize it. There's like nothing there. So yeah, don't worry about it. Fortunately, you don't have to worry about it. I had to worry about it. It was like, what? It's the same thing. And they're like, oh, it's slightly different. You put your lips slightly to the side. Well, it's the same thing. So yeah. And that's not the only thing. Lots of stuff changed. If you wanna hear something really cool, go on YouTube and search for videos of Koreans from the year 2000. So Korea, like Seoul, for example, Seoul 2000 or 2001, sometime around then. So this was like around the time when I was in Korea. I was in Korea 2005. So I started hearing Korean though 2004, I'd say. But around 2005, I was in Korea. So that's the Korean I heard, was the Korean you would hear at around the 2000s. The Korean that they use in this video, you can hear young people using it, sounds like today, people in their 40s and 50s. I'm serious. It is hilarious. the way they talk, it sounds like now how people talk in their 40s and 50s. So these trends kind of change over time. Like the way people talked, if you go and you can see videos of like the 1980s or the 1990s, well, I can hear my mother-in-law like that. The way she talks is kind of more similar to the way they used to talk like that. So it's not that they're not changing the way they talk as they get older. They talk the same way their whole life, but these trends change in that you can hear the way people talk a long time ago by hearing those people talk today. Like someone who's 40 or 50 is going to talk like when they were a kid, they would have talked the same way, and that was more the norm. So just kind of something interesting. You can watch some videos on YouTube. They're pretty cool. But if you listen to them, and if you already speak Korean, so you can understand, you'll hear, oh, it sounds like the 40-year-old guy I know. Oh, it sounds like that guy, the 50-year-old that I know. It sounds like older people because that's what they talked like in that generation. Okay, we're not done with the lesson though. So that is everything about just 되다. But there is a common form that's compared with 되다, and I want to talk about how it's different. The first one is konhada or ko는 하다. Same thing. It's shortened. This one is often compared with the 대 form because it also is used to show something that frequently or repeatedly happens. However, it doesn't have to be negative. I'll just put a crossover negative. It doesn't have to be negative though. So it could be used for saying something that frequently or repeatedly happens, and that's negative, but it doesn't have to be. It could be used for something positive. It simply means something frequently or repeatedly happens. And the way it works is the same. You take a verb stem, so action verb stem, and you attach konhada and you conjugate hada at the end. So then when is this form used? This form is often, I'd say most often used to say used to in the past tense. Now this isn't the best way to say used to. A better way is actually to use just the double past tense, but it's commonly used to say used to. So like 하곤 했어요. 배우곤 했어요. 한국어를 배우곤 했어요. Like I used to study Korean, implying I frequently, over a long period of time, repeatedly, I was 하곤 했어요. I was doing something. So I was studying Korean, or I was doing anything like that. So this form is commonly compared, but the main difference is that it's not required that it has to be negative. Also, it's not required that this has to be used in casual speech either. It can be used formally. 하곤 했습니다. Sounds fine. 먹어 됐습니다. Sounds awkward because the 되다 form in itself is more of a casual spoken only form. And there's one more form I want to talk about. One more form. Okay. This one has a bunch of optional parts. So action verb stem plus 기, 가, 일수이다 or 일수다 or 기 without the 가. So these are optional. This one is also used to show that something often happens. So just like konhada, just like 되다, and just like 되다, it implies that something is negative. So it can be used in the same way to say someone is doing something often and what they're doing is negative. Although it doesn't imply that it's too much, and it doesn't imply that it's excessive or that it's too extreme, but it does imply that it's negative. So then what's the difference between this form and 되다 besides how it's conjugated? Well, 되다 is also, again, only used in casual, so informal speech. It's not used in formal situations or when you want to sound polite. But there's a bigger difference. This form is not so common. That's all you really need to know about it. But be able to recognize it if you see it. It has a similar meaning as 되다. It's just not so common. So you could say 해 되다, 해 돼요, like that. Or 하기가 일수예요. 하기가 일수야. 하기가 일수입니다. Whatever you want to do. But this one is less common. It has slightly more of an older feeling to it, but you might see it from time to time. I've seen it a few times. So I think it's worth learning, but I don't think it's worth using so much. And there are some other small differences here and there, but those are the biggest ones that I think you should know for how it's different. Let's see. Conditional and future tense in French for some learners pose that problem. They're definitely different. It's like a and a using French. Yeah, they were a little bit different. Let's see. Lauren says, my teacher at university teaches us the difference between a and tells us we don't know which one it is to ask if it's all ea or a. Yes, that's right. Lauren, the reason that people say, okay, that's something different. Let me first finish this lesson and I'll let you know. Okay, so that's everything you need to know for the 되다 form. Thanks for watching. Now we're going to have a Q&A, so you can ask any questions you'd like for the next 15 minutes. But that's all the lesson for 되다. So if you have any questions about this lesson, or just questions about Korean in general, or questions about anything, feel free to ask them. First, I'm going to talk about your question. Yeah. Actually, I'll do it like this because it's actually... This is just for spelling purposes. It doesn't have to do with the pronunciation. They'll say I is a. So if you're spelling a word, you'll say like, hey, how do you spell that word? Crab. How do I spell crab? Is it this one or this one? They'll say oi. 기억 oi. Like that. So oi, you can think of it like this. oi. If you take these two and put them together, you get oi. You get a. And this one, a, you get a. Like that. That's how it works. The same thing applies for ye. Do you have yo, right? Which is ye. Or do you get ya, which is, oops, I keep trying to write the consonant there. Ye. Yo, and ya, same thing. And you only need that o, a, yo, ya, for these types of vowels because they have the same sound but different spelling. For other things, you don't need it. Like for yo, you just say yo because there is no other sound that's written differently that's yo. But for diphthongs, you can. Uo, like that. If it's, you can break it down to help people understand. But for diphthongs, it's a little bit easier because it's clearly a diphthong. You can see it's two vowels. For those two, where it's a and o, those ones, it's not clear that it's a diphthong, even though it kind of is. It's not clear, so they usually spell it out to help make it clear, so you know which one they're talking about. Caught, merger. Yeah, it's a merger because originally these were different sounds. And if we're talking about different sounds in Korean, now I am not the expert on old Korean. I do know someone who would be really good about that. But there were many sounds in Korean that merged together that are no longer in existence, or sounds that disappeared really quickly. Like they used to be, and then when as Hangul got more common, 1800s-ish, sounds disappeared. So when King Sejong first created the alphabet, there were more sounds than there are today. There were different sounds than there are today. And if you look at the original document for the 훈민정음, so the original, you can find it on the internet if you search 훈민정음, so Hangul, old Hangul. The original document when he made that, you can see it looks very different. There were other letters they didn't have, like they had more of like this sound. Yeah. It's kind of more like like more like a Z, like a J or a Z sound. And they kind of have these sounds still. You can still find some of the deleted or removed sounds of older Hangul in modern Korean. Like I know North Korean has that kind of sound in some of theirs. Jeju dialect or Jeju language, whichever one you call it. There's another sound. I believe it's. Am I doing that correctly? Yeah, I think it was the dot. I think it was just the dot. I can't remember. I'm suddenly having a mind blank. There's another. I think it's just the dot though. Let me double check. It's called the area. Yeah, it's just the dot. Okay, I just wanted to double check. There's another sound, like you might see it, for example, like that. What sound is that? There was hada. There's the hada. There are two. Okay, I want to give you an example because there's this one. Yeah, because there was this. And then there's this. And I think it actually might be on top. I think it might have been on top. Yeah. There is like hada and then there's hoda. And these were different originally. Now they're just both hada. So I'm not going to be talking about this. You can actually learn about this in my video where I talk about Jeju-do dialect. It didn't get very many views, but I do actually specifically talk about this sound a little bit. Hada used to mean manta, to be a lot. And hoda was the to-do verb. And it kind of got combined together into, this simplified, we call merged into just this sound. But this one is still used in Jeju to mean a lot. So you can hear like some verbs they'll use which are still from that original one that mean a lot or something like that. So that's if you're interested. It's called area. I'll write that one down. This one's actually still in use. That's why. But it has a different sound that you won't find anywhere else in Korean. Okay, next question. Sorry, I can't go into too much detail on that. One, because I'm not a master of old Korean. Two, because I don't want to spend the whole time trying to talk about all that old stuff. Didn't they try to bring back that triangle-looking tamo in North Korea's? They have their own thing going on. Yeah, I'm sure. Like because they do have a sound more like that for the for I know like even the basic word like 저는 제가 제 kind of has more of like 제가 more of like a Z sound, like a J kind of almost. They still have that in North Korea in some parts anyway, but nowadays it's gone. At least not in South Korea. Jeff says, I'm curious, if you do distinguish correctly between K and K, can younger Koreans tell which is which? But without looking at my mouth, probably no, because they themselves wouldn't say them differently. They'd say them both as K, K. But in context, you would know. Like if you said, 꽃게, that's like the small crabs you can get. I can't remember the name of them. It's like the crabs you eat them. The crabs. They're small crabs. You like put meat in, you put rice in them and everything. They would know you're talking about a crab. And if you say like there was a dog running around, K, it's not going to be a crab. Even if you're at the beach, it's going to be a dog running around. So I would say no, they wouldn't be able to tell them apart. Caleb says, just want to say I'm so glad I found you. Been in Korea 7 years and my Korean's still pretty bad. Wish I found your videos when I first came to Korea. Thanks for all the help. Yeah. Welcome. Glad you found me. Hope that you can use my stuff to help motivate yourself to continue learning Korean. 간장게장. Yeah, 간장게장. That's what I was thinking of. The soy sauce crab. Gokke is a type of crab you can also eat, but that's a different meal. Okay, just reading some more questions. Panji-sung, do you have any video for standard rule explaining 띄어쓰기? Yes, check out my Korean FAQ series. I made a video all about the major 띄어쓰기 rules. So you can just watch that. I think it goes over pretty much everything you're going to encounter without exceptions. So I don't talk about like this word is actually like this. We don't talk about any of that. But any major rules, any main things to know are in there. 과제. My Korean teacher sometimes pronounced 과제 like 과제. 과제, 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 과제. It's just the way he talks. Some people have softer, when you have softer pronunciation, some sounds will be different. Like, I remember experiencing this my very first month or so of studying Korean when I was first starting. And I heard someone said, 네, 네. And it sounded like they were saying, 대, 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 대. Like, is that right? And they say, 대, 대. I was like, you're saying 대. And they're like, no, I'm not saying 대. I'm saying 대. Like, it sounds like you're saying 대. So when you get lazy sounds, they can sound differently to your ear. But now if I heard him say that, my brain wouldn't even think they're saying 대 anymore. I would know they're saying 네 softly. So when people pronounce things softer, you can get different sounds. Yeah, you'll get used to that, but it takes a lot of listening practice to get used to how that can sound. Ayakata, nothing to do with Korean. What do you think of the end of Cobra Kai's fourth season? I don't want to spoil anything because people haven't watched it yet. I'm still in episode 6, so I don't know yet. But I like it so far. I watch it. Let's see. Panji Song said, I was wondering if you have any intention to continue the pronunciation video series. What pronunciation video series? I'm not sure which pronunciation series you're talking about. Okay, I can take a couple more questions for today. Bora asks a good question. Noun plus 마다 versus 매 plus noun. Can we say 일마다 instead of 매일? You would say 날마다. Because 일 is not a pure Korean word. 마다 only attaches onto regular nouns. So a regular noun. 매 can only attach, 매 is a 한자. It can only attach to other 한자 words. So you can say 매일, 일 is 한자, so 매일. But the non-한자 word, so the pure Korean word for day is 날. So you could say 날마다, 매일, and they have different connotations. I would check the internet first to see if someone already made a video about it. It's possible Talk to Me in Korean has a video about that topic. If they don't, let me check. You can look at my back for a second. Let's see. Oh, I actually have that as a future topic for a Korean FAQ video. So whether there is or not, in the future, I'll make a video about that. But right now, I don't have one. Robotic Empire says, aren't you tired of that shirt yet? I don't know what you're talking about. I just had it in my closet. I picked out the first shirt, and this is what it was. Let's see. 그렇지 and 그치 are considered the same, just different pronunciation. 그치 is a shortened version used for casual speech only. Let's see. Carol said, $100 and I won't give Hyunwoo your video idea. Hyunwoo doesn't need my permission to make videos about anything he wants. I don't know. Why would I pay someone to keep anything a secret from him? I like Hyunwoo. Zoa says, first time actually tuning in live. What are good study habits for anyone trying to learn Korean but don't have much time to fully commit? Study habits. I always say the same thing every time. Have things that are studying that don't feel like studying to you. So communicating with a Korean friend, watching variety shows, specifically things where your brain is trying to process, not just where you're kind of relaxing and looking at subtitles and just, you're relaxing your brain. Something where your brain is like stressing to work. So conversations with natives, so talking with a friend and trying to use some stuff that you're learning is great. I would say that type of thing because you don't treat it as studying, but it is. Skylar, I would recommend, I have a video series. I have a 100 episode beginner course. I recommend following that because your question is actually in the early stage of conjugation. And I think if you just start watching that course, it'll answer your question and a lot more. I could answer your question, but I worry if you might not understand the explanation unless you've first learned about what verbs are in Korean. So I would recommend trying that course. You can breeze through the first nine episodes because they're just about Hangul. But after you've gotten there, then I think you'll quickly learn the answer to that question. Let's see. What was your favorite Korean word in 2021? A favorite Korean word? I don't think I had a favorite Korean word in a specific year. I don't really have a favorite Korean word. I don't know. I don't have a favorite English word either. So I just use Korean all the time, I guess. So no, I don't have a favorite word. Have you had a chance to check out Language Reactor for Netflix? Nope, never have. Because I don't use Netflix for studying Korean. So I haven't used it. And I always think better is just watching the show, looking it up on your own. If Language Reactor, if it's like a dictionary integrated, that sounds great. If not, just use a dictionary. Same thing. But I think a lot of the benefit you get from practicing language comprehension is your brain working on its own to understand what people are saying, not having someone else just tell you what the person said. So forcing your brain to try to understand what someone said, writing it down, looking that up, and then watching it again. And then if you can't get it after that, if you still can't get it after trying it once or twice, then getting a transcript is very helpful. I wouldn't go straight to a transcript the same way I wouldn't go straight to subtitles. Olivia K, you know when you watch variety shows and they have like a symbol, like a question mark? Yeah, that's just to imply, really? Is it? That sort of meaning. That's it, just like a question mark. Okay, let's see. Any other questions? Sonia Chin says, I guess 맨날 isn't derived from me then. Yeah, it would be. Yeah, it would be 맨날. But 맨날 is a spoken only word that's emphatic. So that's not a good example of why they would, I guess it could cause confusion because you see me with 날, but it's combined together. It's like you can think of it as like a slang word. So it's not really a good comparison for how bada and me are normally used because it's a slang word that was created by sticking them together. You do not ever want to write 맨날 in your test or on an essay. You wouldn't want to say it to a teacher. It sounds like you're complaining about something, like you're emphasizing it every single day like that. Only for speech. Okay. Any other final questions before we end the live stream today? I can take one or maybe two more questions. Oh, yeah. And if you haven't already, I have a little poll. Looks like most people want in-depth grammar lessons. I also made this poll on my channel too. So in case you're wondering why you might see double, I wanted to get a poll for people from the live stream as well as a poll from my general channel audience to see what people want. I have plans for all of these, but I'm wondering which ones I should focus on. That's why I wanted to ask. So I think judging by the poll for this, I'm going to be focusing more on in-depth grammar lessons as soon as I'm starting a new project. So that's going to be actually it's going to be some in-depth grammar lessons. I'll be talking about that when I start it. Zoa says, I study K-pop lyrics in Hangul. I find it's amazing practice for reading and pronunciation. Again, pronunciation is not going to be accurate in a lot of songs. Now, I won't say always because some songs, they are saying it accurately, but it's so common that the pronunciation is wrong in songs that I've heard. And I listen to songs too. It's so common the pronunciation is actually, it's wrong or exaggerated that I wouldn't recommend it for learning pronunciation or learning anything really. But I'm not going to say don't do something you enjoy doing. Just keep in mind that it's not always going to be the most accurate. You'll learn words that aren't really used in Korean, words that are only used in poems and songs. There are lots of those that are not actually used in spoken Korean, but appear all the time in songs. I gave one example earlier for 늘, meaning always. It's not used in speech very much, but it's used all the time in songs. So I would say no, that's my recommendation. It's not going to be the best way. Now, if you do, just be aware of that and tread carefully. But if you enjoy it, then it's better to do something you enjoy that you're still kind of studying than to just not study. So yeah, keep doing it. But I would add on things that aren't songs that you can get some more realistic Korean as well. So like variety shows are something that I often recommend. Lily Alligator. Yeah, someone tagged me about that. It's not really a trend other than some people are doing it. It's a trend. It's there. That's not the first time either. You can, after you conjugate a verb, like there are so many goofy ways of writing Korean, just like there are so many goofy ways of writing English. Let me give you an example. Who knows this? Who knows this? Like this is maybe the most famous example, and that the appliances and that's not this famous, but this is an example. Who knows what this is? Is this cool? Do you use this when you speak? Do you say, wow, that's 1337? Could you? Yeah. Could you? Sure. Could you write this? Yeah. Why not? Would people think it's funny? Some people would. Does it sound cool? Some people think so. I don't think so. Kids will think so. Adults probably will not think so. That's like adding appliances, adding sounds. People will add other sounds to the end of their sentences too. Random endings. It's normal. It's been going on forever. At least since before I went to Korea, people were doing the same sort of thing. It sounds childish. So if you know it, if you're aware of it, that's cool. Because if someone uses it to you, maybe they're trying to test your Korean. Like, oh, will they understand if I say this? Ha ha ha. That's cool to know it. Should you use it? That's your choice. Do I recommend it? No. It doesn't sound cool. It sounds childish. There are lots of slang words that come and go every year. Some of them stick around that sound very cool and others that sound very childish. Knowing them is useful. This was one a few years ago. You'll still see it. 눈물. 눈물 is tears. You write it upside down. You mirror it upside down. You get 눈물 is 롬곡. 롬곡. So some people would write 롬곡. Haha, it's so funny. Like, would you ever use this? Would you say 롬곡이 나요 instead of 눈물이 나요? You could. Some people might be impressed. Would you sound cool to some people? But overall, should you be saying this with your friends regularly? No, it'll sound childish, like you're forcing a joke, kind of. So that's the same opinion I have about anything that's like not standard Korean is be careful in that who you're using it with. Now, if someone uses it to you a lot, like this type of thing, or, attaching appliances, that's fine. Then that's the relationship they want to have. You can use it back to them if you think it's funny, if you like it. Just know that not everyone will feel the same way. And the older you get, so now I'm 35, so the older you get, the fewer people will use that sort of thing. Now I would use the slang I would have learned when I was younger. Kids will use the slang they learned when they were younger, like that. I wouldn't use it. I would feel really awkward for me to use that sort of goofy Korean just for the sake of being goofy. Like it's not funny in itself, but it's goofy because it's different. I guess it all reminds me too much of like I don't know, the easiest comparison I can make is like Holds Up Spork, Penguin of Doom, if anyone knows that. Like, is it funny if you know it? It's hilarious. Do you want to actually ever use it? Like, no, like it's cringy. But some people found it at the time, really cool. People really liked it. So just be careful with any slang you use that you don't know how long it's going to be popular. You don't know who's going to use it. And you don't know how the person who hears it is going to now perceive you for having used it. Okay, I hope I gave a decent explanation of my opinion on adding appliance names to the end of sentences. And everyone else who didn't know what that is like, what's Billy on about right now? Yes. Okay, one more question, then we'll go. It's almost 3:30. Yeah, 댕댕이. 댕댕이 though, I think 댕댕이 survived there was a trend of people who would write words the way that like they would write them a little bit different. So like I guess one of the example is like 명작 is the word for like it's a masterpiece like that. But then people would write it as was it 댕작? Was it 댕? I think it was like 댕작 or something. There are a few of these. The most common one, yeah. That's what I was trying to think. 커엽다. 커엽다 is 귀엽다. So 귀여워, cute. But if you look at this, if you actually write this down here, it kind of looks like 커. Kind of looks like 귀엽어. 커. So people started writing 커엽다 or 커요, like 커요. That one survived, even though there was a lot of examples like this, a lot of examples of words that were smashed. So another one is what the user wrote, 멍멍이. You can also look, it looks like 멍, but it also kind of looks like it could be 댕, right? 댕. Like if you just extend this, you get 멍. So people would write 댕댕이 instead of 멍멍이 for a puppy. And you'll still see this one. So even though the whole trend died, like some people still smash other words together, these two survived out of that whole mess. And there are a few others. I can't remember the one for 명작. I think it might have been like 댕작 or something. I'd have to ask. Yeah, 야민정음. I actually did a video about 야민정음 on my Korean Trends video series. So you can find a video all about that on my channel. There were a bunch of these that were made, tons of these that were made, but of those thousands of examples, these are the two that really survived, is 댕댕이 and 커엽다. So you might see these because they actually ended up getting widespread use. So if people like widespread start using, TB at the end, or, 전자레인지, or like something like 냉장고 at the end of their sentences, if people start doing that widespread, then one or two of them might stick around. Other than that, it's going to die. Like any other of those word trends that I've seen dozens and dozens of them. Every year has a new one. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if you're wondering about more, it's called 야민정음. I would... 띵작! Thank you, 띵작! I was like, I knew it wasn't 땡, because that doesn't make sense. Yeah, 띵. Yeah, anything that has 명 would get changed to... because it kind of looks like 명, like this, right? 명. But yeah, so they would write 띵작. So that's amazing. That's like a masterpiece. Wow, 띵작 or something like that. I couldn't remember that one, but I've seen that a lot. Yeah. So that one also is sometimes used, but I would say really 댕댕이 is the winner of that entire competition. The winner, that one actually survived, and you can still see people writing 댕댕이 on hashtagging their dog photos as 댕댕이, stuff like that. Yeah, good question. Thanks, Paul. Okay. I think that's good for today. I think that's good. Hey, Billy, what is to come for those of us who would like our Korean graded? Oh, yeah, I stopped doing that only because I was going to Korea last year in the summer. So the last one I did was in like May or something of last year. And I was in Korea all of May, June. No, I was in Korea June, July, August, and then I went back again in November. And between then, I've been editing all of these videos that I've been filming. So I'm still editing those videos that I filmed, even some of them last month and November that I filmed. So once I finish editing those, which should be the end of this month, I think, or maybe early next month, then I'm going to be free to start working on more videos. And the first thing I want to do is a new project, which I'm not ready to announce yet officially what it is. And as well as I'll open up the grading videos again, but I'll make an announcement about that. I also have some plans for that should be really cool. But right now it's on hiatus. It's on pause. I will do it again, but not right now. Okay, I think that's enough. I don't want to keep taking away your time. I know everyone's busy, has to practice their Korean. Thank you for coming to this lesson, and I hope you learned something new today, and I will see you again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.